start and introduce our panelists. I'm going to ask the three of you very briefly, just a little bit about who you are, your background, your journey in digital marketing, and your involvement in the program. So welcome. Claire, let's start with you.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. My name is Claire Dupree. I have worked in digital marketing for over 15 years now. And during my career, I've held numerous titles. I actually started my digital marketing career as a copywriter and way back when, and subsequently held titles like head of content, head of product marketing, brand director, digital marketing manager. And then I worked as a fractional CMO and consultant as well. My passion is really for B2C marketing in the tech industry, but I did serve as a CMO for a management consultancy, a multinational management consultancy in the B2B space. So I'm very well versed in B2C and B2B marketing. So very excited to be here and hopefully share what I can about the contributions that industry has made to this program.
Who's up? Me. Hi everyone, I'm Neil. So yeah, like Claire, been in the industry for quite a while, close to 20 years now. I remember my first project was in a platform called Dreamweaver, building websites, and then couldn't figure out how to get traffic to the website. And that kind of really started the journey for me. More recently, in the last 5 years, been building data teams for some big FMCG businesses, banking in the banking sector, and have started a business called MeasureByte, been going for about 4 years, and loving the space. It's, yeah, there's such a massive opportunity.
I think that leaves me. Hello, everyone. I am Fiona. So one of the non-digital marketing panelists here. So I'm actually the product owner for the digital marketing program here at Fourth Rev, and of course in partnership with LSE. And so yeah, here to of course share more with you about how we've actually worked with amazing industry experts just like Claire and Neil throughout the development of the program and how this program has come together. So I'll hand back over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Fee. A wealth of knowledge. So really excited to see where the discussion takes us today. Again, quick reminder, Q&A function. As questions come to mind, please post in there and we'll get to them in due course. I think a good starting point for us to begin is just around the current digital marketing landscape. Neil, would like to kick off just with a question for you around what skills do you think are most crucial for digital marketers to develop in today's landscape, and of course, importantly, future-proof one's career in marketing?
Yeah, so I'm a big frameworks person, so understanding mental models and understanding just how marketing works in general, right, and how that interacts within business, because there's always that collaboration required between marketing and business. So the skills really outside of obviously the data skills that we're talking about, it's also the softer skills when engaging with leaders, right? Like I always say that you can be the smartest data analytics person, the smartest data analyst person in the room, but if you don't understand the motivation at a leadership level, you can't bridge that gap. Your work will never have the value that it should have. So that integration of data analytics and understanding business problems and leadership challenges is such an important point that we need to touch on.
Perfect, thank you. Claire, Fee, jump in as you like if you've got anything additional to add. But
Josh, I can add to that one. So additionally to what Neil was speaking about, the other thing that I think is absolutely critical is digital marketing strategy today has to be rooted in consumer insights and information about how consumers are behaving. And obviously you have the data side in terms of both quantitative and qualitative data that needs to drive that understanding and influence the strategies that you're building. So I think that that's a skill that is critical to develop. And then further to that, to build on what Neil was talking around, the whole field of leadership, one of the biggest things is being able to evaluate emerging technologies and evaluate the space that digital marketing kind of offers, because it is such a fast moving industry. And that leadership skill of being able to evaluate the latest tech and how to apply it and how to drive business value with it is an absolute like foundational critical skill that I see so much gaps happening in marketing teams currently, that I think we look to try and address that in contributing to this program.
Yeah, I'll just add on. Oh, go on, Neil. You first, then me. You first, then me.
Sorry, I was just going to add on to that around such an important point, Claire, just to help me remind it, is the creative piece. So creative is the lever, right? And I think that's, as marketers, what we must understand is that we've moved into a very much an efficiency world, and our mindset is efficiency, and we've forgotten about effectiveness. So if there's like one skill that you can start to get your hands on and try and understand is the value that creative has. And obviously from a data analytics perspective is, how do we analyze the creative? What does good creative look like? That's the real lever, yeah. Sorry, Fiona, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I think digital marketing is one of those, it's both an art and a science, and it's about how all marketers balance that. And also to jump off what Claire is mentioning as well about how important, because it's just so fast moving and it's just not going to change, in our lifetimes or the next generation. So not only how to evaluate those emerging technologies, but also how do you test and how do you figure out, is that the right technology or new way of working to try it in my team, test it, see if it works, move on. And I think that's also a key part of the program, especially as we get into the later parts of the program, as we start to dive into those important leadership topics. So yeah, hopefully everyone here, that's given you some insight into some of the great and key skills that this program does dive into.
Thanks, Faye. Claire, why now? When we think about how quickly the digital landscape is evolving, why do you believe now is a crucial time for professionals to continue to develop, upskill, and look at programs like the Digital Marketing Career Accelerator?
Yeah, so I think, success today really comes down to two things, and that's pace and quality of your learning. I don't think that, I don't think we could say that now is different to previous times because of the pace at which this industry evolves. Digital marketers or marketers in general have to constantly be upskilling. So, why now would be a perfect time to take a program like this is purely because it offers both that pace and quality of learning. You're getting the quality from an academic institution like LSE, as well as input, on the ground, real impact input from industry experts who've collaborated effectively to talk about the current challenges that we're facing as an industry, and the gaps we're looking to fill from junior marketers or mid-level marketers looking to upskill. This is the type of thing we need to see in the industry, and that's why the program is so impactful. It will fill the gaps I know that I see in my own marketing teams. So that's really where I would go to with that.
Lovely, thank you. So, Faye, I want to get then your perspective on what Neil and Claire have mentioned about the skills, some of the gaps, specifically if we think about the program's curriculum. So how does that align with what Neil and Claire have mentioned?
Yeah, 100%. And of course, Neil and Claire do jump in, but as Claire has already talked about the importance of learning these skills, whether you're new in your career, even whether you're kind of later in your career. I think the way that how we built this program with experts like Claire and Neil is really that focus on. Of course, there are so many technology things that are changing day in, day out. For example, Meta is changing how they use their tools. That, of course, is not something that you'd come to a program like this to do, because, of course, Meta is designing their own training about how to use these specific tools. But what this Career Accelerator does is really gives that basis at whatever stage of your marketing career you are. You have to have the basis of how to ensure that you're that everything you do is based in strategy. You're not just kind of like doing things like right off the bat on a whim. Oh, this is a new cool new technology. Let's use TikTok because it just came out. That just doesn't, that's ineffective, right? As Neil was saying, it's about efficiency as well as creativity. So the program very much builds and like starts off in that course one of like really putting that foundation of strategy. How do you make sure everything is tied back to strategy? How do you cascade from that? How do you put in the beginnings of strategy? And that's really how that basis starts. Course two then layers onto that, and it's very much about, okay, great, strategy is important, but let's not forget every time we do something and we test something and try out a campaign, then all the data starts coming in. So it's about how do you optimize and create campaigns and figure out how to make changes based on the data and insights that are coming in. So that's, of course, incredibly important. You know, as Claire and Neil have been saying, that's not going to change. You know, you need to be able to adapt and change to the market and the competitor environment. And it's just constant having to keep on top of that. But where I think there's a great story here is that course three then becomes very much about, but how do you actually be a leader in this space? Even if you're beginning in your career, it's setting these foundational steps of you even feel early on about what kind of leader would I want to be? What works really well as a leader in this kind of environment? And also start to talk about, as we were talking about earlier, about how do I even figure out which emerging tech to trial, and how do I even roll that out amongst a team? How do I project manage a team? How do I hire? How do I figure out a budget, you know, for a department? So it's all these very actual practical, you could maybe even call them less sexy skills that you might not have in mind, but that are so key and important and foundational, and that layer on so well to the, I guess you could say, almost like more technical skills of the first two courses. And then that final course is very much about, great, but here's a real life project. Here's an employer who's actually giving you a real life problem. Now try and use everything that you've learned in courses 1, 2, and 3 and come together also and work with a group of your peers, which of course is again in itself an incredibly useful skill to learn. We don't get to choose who we work with. We all need to learn how to work with different people, different backgrounds and everything. So that's actually a really critical skill that, while you may not look for that on a kind of digital marketing syllabus, that's highly important to learn, right? We all need to learn to work remotely, right? You know, remote working is also not going away. So yeah, I hope that gives a bit of insight about how that curriculum has very much been based on what the market needs as a new marketer or even a more senior marketer, but also gives a bit more of that story of how those skills layer onto each other as well. I don't know if Claire, Neil, or Josh, you want to jump in any questions, or if anyone wants to layer on to what I've just shared, but hopefully that's a bit good, that's some good insight there.
No, you covered quite a lot there. That was great.
There you go.
No, it's good.
I wanted to build on just something that Fiona spoke about there. I mean, you covered off the kind of program in its holistic nature beautifully. The piece on strategy, I just wanted to reiterate, and I think that's one of the biggest problems I see with marketers in their early stage or mid-stage careers is they struggle to connect the dots. So, you know, a lot of the time we spend time becoming a specialist and we learn a channel or we learn a tactic. But where we struggle is to start moving ourselves away from that and starting to connect the different moving parts into something that drives impact and business value, and that is informed by data, which is critical to get influence. So I think that, you know, that for me just resonates so strongly in terms of what I see happening in digital marketing teams and for junior digital marketers or mid-career digital marketers who are struggling to move up in their careers. And the other thing I wanted to say is the employer partner project at the end, the real practical project, is so fantastic, because an undervalued skill is influence and how you build, you know, cross-stakeholder influence, and how do you collaborate effectively to get something done, because often a marketer is dealing with so many different moving parts and is dependent on so many different types of personality, skills, departments to get the impact that they need, and that's not a skill that's often taught. So I think that that's I want to call out specifically in how that project actually materializes itself.
Yeah, it's really, from an enrollments perspective, it's, I think what you've touched on just there, Fee and Claire, is really relevant to questions that candidates have when we first speak to them is that often there's a focus on wanting just to develop their technical capabilities in a certain area, rather than having that holistic understanding, and as you said, the technical capabilities, but within aligning that to the intended strategy or outcome. So yeah, have that conversation really daily regarding that. So good to hear.
Yeah. And maybe just to add, I think it's also doing that in parallel. It's never linear. It's always about learning those technical skills in parallel to the softer stuff. And that is trial and error, right? Especially in the workplace. So yeah, just to make that point, I think it's never linear.
Thanks, Neil. We've got some questions coming through, which is great. Amy, you've kicked it off. So what resources or sites do the three of you use to keep yourself updated with the latest trends?
I'm happy to kick off. I think it totally depends on what I'm looking to keep updated on, because there's such a wealth of information out there. I do learn a lot from fellow marketers who I follow on LinkedIn, based on my areas of interest. So things like product marketing and brand marketing. I follow some leading voices in the space on LinkedIn to see what they're talking about. And then, yeah, so social media, like X or Twitter, whichever one you want to call it these days, is still also a good resource for me. I'm not going to call out the specific like blogs or podcasts or resources because they're just numerous. I have tons that I follow and listen to. But I will say that what is useful about this program is I brought in a lot of those resources into the contributions that I made in the content development. So you are getting access to kind of what are those resources that industry experts are using and referring to when, doing their work on a day-to-day basis. So those are embedded in the curriculum as well as additional resources, which is great.
Yeah, from my side, I'd say so obviously the course fast tracks a lot of that. So I think if we're not studying, we're in some ways losing momentum. And that's super important. So if you want to fast track, then do the course. Outside of that, I read a lot of books. So like I said earlier, frameworks are really important, and books obviously get, they're not as frequent, but generally when you read a good book, it's something that sticks in your mind for years, not your whole career. And that always serves as a good point of reference. And like Claire said, follow all the thought leaders, and that really aligns my tactical thinking. So like the book is the strategy piece and the course is the strategy piece. Following thought leaders is like that quick, okay, what is happening right now view. So there's this like long-term view that I have, and then there's a short-term view that LinkedIn mostly provides for me as a marketer. And podcasts, yeah, like I go through these moments of just refining podcasts, but the same handful of ones always stick around.
Yeah, like I could just quickly add on to that. Actually, I think that's so insightful, of course, that Claire and Neil are talking about how they're following people in the industry, even if they're thought leaders, super famous and maybe like incredibly, almost like worldwide global, but then also following people perhaps who are maybe more like peers or maybe like, potentially like only a few years down. I think that's a really good, even like early on career tip to share now about how it's great to have that kind of variety when you're thinking about moving into a new career or developing your current career and where the space that you're in. Because, for example, a thought leader, you never know, like down the road or even now, you can start reaching out to these people, not for saying like, hello, here I am, I'd like a brand new job, but more about to get their tips and advice for like, how did you get into this space? You can start to see their career tracks, what they talk about, what they read, what they do. And that's actually a really great, valuable way to start thinking about, find the few people out there who are maybe really way down the road, but sometimes it's actually more useful to look just a couple of years down the road about like, how did they get there? Because actually that's where I want to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And to start talking to people about how did you get there? What did you do? What did you learn? what were the tips you'd wish you'd shared with yourself before then? So yeah, just kind of build on that. But it's not only about like keeping up to date with the latest trends, but you can also tie that into how can I get to where, how can I help this to kind of craft my own career journey? I think it's also a really great way to think about it.
Thanks, Fee. I think that ties in really well to the next part, just around mentorship. And we've actually, for the upcoming intake, starting July 29th, is we have a part of the program is additional mentorship. And this was built based on feedback in speaking to a range of candidates, identifying that digital marketers specifically just really love mentorship, and we're really seeking that. So we implemented that for our previous cohort, and doing that once again for this intake. So this is separate, and I'll touch on more of the specifics later regarding the program, but separate to your academic support that you have throughout the program and your career coach, you will have access to group mentoring sessions. Claire and Neil, you're a part of that. Wanted to talk a little bit more about, firstly, in your minds, the importance of mentorship, and then what is your approach to being a mentor?
Happy to start. So I think the beauty of this program is that combination of the coaching and the mentorship. So I think what's important is to understand distinguish the two for what they are. So, coaching is really about, a coach believes that you have all the answers yourself, and it's a really empowering process where you bring the content and the coach is the expert facilitator in helping you realize your potential towards the goal you're setting and working with that coach on. So that's a very different relationship, and really effective for you to leverage in pursuing your career goals and all of those things you need to overcome to get into the mindset or get the confidence to achieve whatever it is you're wanting to do. And then you pair that with mentorship, and mentorship is really about shared wisdom. And to what Neil was talking about earlier around that accelerated career development. So the beauty of mentorship is learning from someone who's already done the things you're wanting to do. So it's imparting that wisdom and saying, I've made the mistakes, before, I've seen the opportunities, I've thought about this challenge, and I can share all of those things with you. So it's a beautiful relationship in terms of fitting with the Career Accelerator model of that acceleration narrative by leveraging all of us who have had years of experience in the space, who've held many different roles, who've overcome many different challenges in marketing. We get to share that with all of you when you come to these group mentorship sessions. And yeah, I just think that pairing of coaching and mentorship is pretty unique and something I wish I'd had the opportunity for early on in my marketing career, because it would have been super impactful. So, and the final point I want to say about mentorship is, it's really mutually beneficial, and which is why I love mentoring, is because I learn so much from the mentee as I do in terms of sharing my knowledge and expertise, because there is so much to learn in the marketing space. I can't know it all, but in our collaboration, there is so much power in that collective wisdom that we can extract from one another in a mentorship relationship. So that's really my view on mentorship.
From my side, so yeah, over and above the career goals and all that, I take a different angle to this question. Is that something I've learned over the years is that people have emotion, right? Surprise, surprise. And by accident, I think it was when I was building quite a big data team, a lot of chaos, people getting lost in what to do, etc., and staying aligned. Alignment is super critical. So we introduced the HDIF. How do I feel? And we did that in every session. And everyone, so someone sitting in the room, perhaps but quieter, not wanting to like upset the apple cart or share their feelings, this puts them straight in the space where, well, I'm feeling a 5, okay, out of 10, but I really need, what will get you to a 7 or an 8, and then we work with that person to get them to a 7 or 8. And that, apart from being super agile, I would absolutely recommend this even in a team environment. It really gets the person in an agile mindset. It gets them thinking about, okay, I'm in this position. Maybe I'm confused in this scenario. I'm confused about a course element, or maybe even a career. I'm in a career and I'm studying as well. It could be different situations and context. But how do you move to the next step, I think is critical. And that is part of mentoring in my mind.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I really love that. Is it how do you feel? I'm not going to say the acronym correctly, but I really love that. And actually, it reminds me of actually even within the team here who worked on the LSE DM Accelerator, we actually start our weekly stand-up with just a one-word summary of how we're all feeling, which I think, yeah, is just sharing already these kinds of tricks and tools that teams are using, whether you're a marketing team or a product team or whichever kind of team, but about what are the ways that we can make work more connected to how we feel, because of course, you know, the day is there. And I'm going to tie this back now quickly to the program, because you can start to practice these skills already in this kind of like new co-working fashion, you know, online with your peers right away for it. So for example, you know, you have these week facilitator sessions with an actual, you know, industry expert also adding on their expertise. But, you know, quite often the facilitators will start these sessions with stand-up, which is again a very common industry tool, which most technical teams are using. But I think in the mindset of a classroom, it's really great because it brings in what you're just sharing, Neil, about even it's the same during a program. You're doing a very intense, you know, career accelerating program, but students can talk about already right off the bat, actually, you know, my blocker is, you know, work's been really crazy, or my family's had a lot of stuff going on. And I think it starts to lend that mindset of, you know, everyone in this class is going through different things, has different challenges, but we're all trying to grapple with learning at this accelerated pace in the same way. And everyone's, yeah, as I said, sometimes, some days, you know, some of your peers are going to be at a 7 out of 10, sometimes a 10, sometimes a 5. And you can build those, I guess you call that kind of emotional intelligence skills as well during the program to kind of couple with the mentorship that you're also accessing as well. Apologies, a bit of a tangent, but I thought it'd be cool just to bring in. I'll hand it back over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Fee. And that was helpful. Thank you. We've got a range of questions coming through, which is really good. Appreciate that. There are a few questions around program specific costs, duration. I'll cover that at the end. Whilst we have the panelists here, we'll focus on the questions relevant to them, but we will get to specifics of the program afterwards. Fee, probably one for you. A little bit more information. They want to know a bit more about the employer project for the program, and specifically who the project partner is, or how that process works.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, you know, it will depend on which program you enroll in. But of course, I can share about how the process of how the team selects partners. So, for example, it can be inbound or outbound in terms. So, for example, one of the partners we're working on the current program was actually an inbound request. One of our students on the product management course saw how valuable the employer project was and said, you know what, I think the marketing team of my organization should do this as one of their and be a project. So that's a really great example of how sometimes these things come about. But of course, on the other hand as well, talking kind of about our career accelerators more widely, there can of course just be outbound, you know, reaching out to companies large and small to find out who has some great projects for students to work on that aligns closely with that aligns very well with the curriculum of the program. But to give you a bit more, so for example, so for this current project, you know, that's how this partner came about. They are a small to medium-sized business, actually also in the education tech space. And they came with a problem that then they worked with our product team and our subject matter experts to figure out, okay, great, is this the right kind of problem, the right kind of scope? Normally that's figured out very quickly. And then we also work on just aligning, okay, great, does all the different courses prepare students to actually tackle this problem? So that's a bit of the behind the scenes of how they come about. I hope that was helpful. Lovely potential learners here.
Thank you, Fee. Yes, it was. Perfect. So back onto the contributions from the industry experts. So question here, what specific contributions do industry experts like yourselves make to the Digital Marketing Career Accelerator that enhances the program's relevance and effectiveness?
Yeah, I can jump into that one, and then of course Claire and Neil do jump back in as well. But I would say actually that is also a cool differentiator about this program. So for example, I've been working in tech education for a long time, and normally programs like this would work with maybe 1 to 5 different subject matter experts during the development of a program like this. However, on this program, not only have we had 1 to 2 full-time subject matter experts literally driving the program design and development, working in-house day in, day out with the product team. On top of that, we also have the incredible validation and expertise of the LSE digital marketing, of the LSE marketing faculty, who've also been reading over the content and giving us their feedback. And then, as I say, I think another great differentiator is on top of that, you also have, and I believe it's around 10 plus, the insight of people of, so, Claire and Neil, of course, are just some examples here, but we also weave in. So for example, we get to a topic and say, for example, of course, it's something like data. We'll work with Neil to essentially create extra content, which is all drawing from Neil's experience. So you have an additional 10 plus voices throughout the voice of the program. So really to share that is quite rare, I think, when you're talking about these kinds of programs. That's a lot. There really is bringing in as many examples and an actual industry experience throughout, depending on the topic that's at hand. And then on top of that, during the actual live delivery of the program, you of course also have mentorship sessions, which again could be with someone like Claire or Neil. And on top of that, again, there's also weekly facilitator classes with, again, another digital marketing subject matter expert. So again, a marketer in their field who actually will help you dive into the assignment activities. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor of the number of industry expertise voices you get to hear throughout. I don't know if Claire or Neil, you wanted to jump in on anything there.
Well, I think one of the things that attracted me to working on the program was that, right from inception, when I was first approached to contribute to the program, before the program had even been designed, there was an initial inception period where a group of us, industry experts, all who've had long career trajectories in marketing and have held senior leadership titles in marketing, were consulted on understanding the current landscape and what really was what were the critical areas to focus on in developing a program that was going to be relevant and effective for learners studying digital marketing right now in the current landscape. So, everything was designed according to that initial industry collaboration and paired with academics. So we were put into the rooms with the academics to discuss the topical issues that were happening in the digital marketing landscape. And only through those conversations was the curriculum designed and based on. And then leading into the actual design of the program, we were consulted routinely to contribute to content that aligned with our areas of expertise and our professional passions, as well as review the content. So I feel like industry has been involved in everything around this program, like since day one, since before it even, had a fleshed out curriculum, and then right through to now where we're running cohorts and getting feedback, like Josh mentioned, there was a desire for mentorship. So it's a case of, okay, cool, let's see how industry can add to the experience by keeping that voice alive through mentorship. And then you get an emerging technology disrupting the space like AI. And so Jenna Tiffany, who's one of the subject leads on this program, who couldn't be here today, but Jenna and I jumped on a call and said, let's work on an AI learning track. And how do we keep that going alongside the curriculum to keep the curriculum like current and relevant? So industry is just intimately involved in the delivery and creation of this program, which keeps it pretty current, pretty relevant. Yeah.
Done a great job. I have nothing to add.
You've predicted the next question quite well, Claire. There is a question around the mention of Gen AI, which was seen in the brochure. So we're going to get to that in a moment. There is one further question around mentorship, so I think it's good that we focus on that before moving on to a different topic. So question here was, can you share a success story from your mentorship experience within the program? Look, stating that it's very much in its infancy because we did launch it in P2, which started in May. So Neil, Claire, whether you've got a success story yet, or more so around what's planned and that the type of engagement in the mentorship program, if you can talk to that a little bit.
So this is my first mentorship contribution to LSE, but I will say I have mentored for the last 10 years. I mean, it's so valuable. I can't. I mean, I've hired people that I've mentored, and they've become like literally world class in what they do. It is obviously up to the mentee as well to absorb and to action. It's a two-way street. But mentoring as just another layer of diversity and layers to the onion, because there's always context, right? There's context that is required, and mentorship covers that.
I think that was a great summary of where we're at with the mentorship initiative. I believe the first round of mentorship is kicking off shortly. So we haven't got a case study of the mentorship yet. But yeah, to Neil's point, we've all had experience mentoring in the past. It's a fantastic opportunity to network with industry leaders and learn in that shared wisdom environment. The sessions are planned to be group sessions and aligned to the curriculum. So you can discuss any current challenges that you're facing with applying that content in real world settings, and get that perspective as you're learning. So yeah, that's really where we're at with the planning stages of the mentorship initiatives.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, and look, again, it ties in as well with the program only launching at the beginning of this year. We do look to limit the sizes of the cohort because of the hyper-personalized support that you receive there. So that includes the mentorship and making sure that you do have that level of engagement that's required to really see that value throughout. All right, back on to Gen AI. So the question here, hello, in the brochure, it's mentioned that Gen AI tools and insights would be shared. Can you please talk more about it?
I'm happy to kick off on that one. So Jenna, Tiffany, and I designed what's called an AI learning track. It's consisting of 4 workshops that happen concurrently to the curriculum, so across the program. And it tackles everything right from the fundamentals of Gen AI, where we have to address varying degrees of expertise with Gen AI. So it covers everything from the fundamentals in terms of like, what is an LLM? What are the different types of LLMs? What are the use cases you would use them for? Prompt engineering, all of those fundamentals that you would expect in the beginning. And then all the way through, we are looking at bringing in guest speakers to join us in each of those masterclasses who are working on something specific to marketing in their current organization. So for example, generative search and how that's shaping the SEO industry. We are bringing in an expert who is currently applying generative search practices to enhance their SEO strategies. We're looking at content strategy. I mean, Gen AI is being leveraged quite extensively in content. So we'll be talking to someone in the content production space. All the way through to data analytics and how that's how people are using Gen AI in the data space as well. So those are just some examples of how we're doing it. Obviously, the challenge with teaching anything in the AI space is how fast the technology is evolving. So while we have a plan for what will be covered in these AI masterclasses, the idea is to also be agile in terms of how we adapt and change the content of the AI masterclass to be most relevant and impactful at that point in time. So we would expect a few changes to the actual content accordingly. I myself am particularly passionate about Gen AI. I have been running a Gen AI learning circle since January with a group of marketers from all over the world. So yeah, I've got tons of use cases and a wealth of knowledge to share in the space. I can no longer, I could never claim to be an expert in the space. I don't think anyone could, because next week we're going to get ChatGPT 5 and everything will be thrown to the wind. But yes, I think the AI Learning Track is a very exciting addition to helping this program remain relevant and keep that top of mind. So you'll have access to that if you join the program.
Perfect. Thanks, Claire. Plenty more questions to get through. We've got about 15 minutes remaining. Confident we can get through the remaining relevant ones for the panel, and then I'll cover the rest afterwards. One just from me that popped up about, we're talking about the implementation of Gen AI based on trends. We've spoken about implementing mentorship because of the feedback that we've received. The speed at which, or the frequency at which that we review content as well, all ties into the development of a digital portfolio, so the practical project-based learning. And by having a digital portfolio that has ideally the most relevant, up-to-date experiences from the program, I'm interested to hear, one, Faye, you'll have an insight in terms of the development of the content. Neil, Claire, being in industry, potentially hiring people, coming across people that have had more of an experience like you receive in the Career Accelerator. How is it relevant for industry and a benefit for someone that is looking at a promotion or pivoting into marketing, digital marketing?
So,
Oh, go on, you go. You start.
I was going to say from a hiring perspective and how we look at CVs at the moment, I think everyone can say that they a prompt engineer. It adds a lot of more value if you go through a verified process, a vetted process, like LEC. So that is my one comment. I think the other is just how in the last month, we as my team, we've discovered a new model, and from a content perspective, how it's just ramped our thinking and just enlightened us to something to a point where we're like, okay, well, there's so much more we can do and fast track and the learning. So I'd love to be able to share those learnings and the failures that we've had in the last 6 months, because let's be honest, like we've tried to stress test it in different ways. We've tried to find different use cases for AI. It's not always that clear from a marketing perspective. We're finding those use cases now. We are all maturing in some shape or form, and I think that's obviously still at the foot of the mountain still in terms of where we can go, obviously. But there has been so much learning from our side over the last. There's new tools. There's so much we can talk about in the mentoring sessions.
Yeah, that's great. And if I that's I think actually what's great there, Neil, is you actually kind of gave a live example of your team actually doing what we talked about at the start, which is, different tools coming all the time. You need to learn how to test them and figure out what's working, what's not. And of course, yeah, there is a lot of learning through failing. So yeah, to tie that back to that question, Josh, you were sharing around, what are the projects and how do they add to your portfolio? Just to give a bit kind of more detail around that. So again, you've got these 4 courses. Courses 1 and 2, we essentially present a fictional scenario or a fictional company, but just to clarify, these are based on real life companies. So you come out with already 2 portfolio pieces right after courses 1 and 2, which you can still talk about in an interview or in with a potential client, to basically leverage, these are the skills that I learned, this is how I did it, these are the choices that I made, this is what mistake I made, and this is how I adapted. Course 3, which by the way is the leadership program, just to remind you, that's actually where learners are given the choice to choose what a company to do their project on. So that could again be a client or a company you've worked in. It could also just be, hey, I'm actually really passionate about fashion or food tech or anything. You can just choose a space that you're already just naturally interested in. And as long as that company has enough public data for you to get your teeth into, which a lot of these companies do, then you can actually just do you can craft your project around that company. And then of course, as we've talked about in course 4, that's where again, as a group, you're doing a project for an actual live employer. It could be one of their current issues they're facing. It could sometimes also be a past issue that they face to kind of help them think through what are some better ways to approach that issue or that problem space. So just to give you a bit more of that holistic overview of you depart this program with 4 separate portfolio pieces, which can either be part of a portfolio or of a deck you can show to employers, or it can simply be you know those projects so well inside and out that you can just take from them and talk about them when you're in interviews or talking to potential clients. And that is, of course, why the team here have designed these programs in this way and these projects in this way, because they are all with the goal in mind of being something that you can actually talk about to demonstrate the skills that you have learned. So yeah, hopefully that gives a bit more insight there. I don't know if Claire or Josh, you wanted to share anything more on that.
I just wanted to say that, you're talking about, you leave the program with these portfolio pieces, which is what you do, but what you're actually leaving the program with is confidence. And I think that is something we don't talk about enough, that when you have the opportunity to really translate, you're learning a bit of the theoretical side of it. You're practicing that in an applied scenario that's contextual to a real world business. When you're doing that and you're practicing that routinely over a period of 6 months in a program like this, you are building confidence, and confidence is what's going to actually help you achieve the career goals that you're wanting, because you're going to go into interviews feeling like, I know my stuff. I am able to talk to these things because I know how to do it. I'm not just talking the talk. I've got proof that I can do this. And that recognition from LSE by getting the certificate behind you, that's really what you're gaining. And I think confidence is really what's going to set you apart when it comes to a very competitive, market of digital marketers, because you've got this backing, this recognition, and the confidence to talk to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that exactly what you're saying, it's very much an acceleration into hopefully gaining that, because getting all that experience can often take much longer, or you're not actually in a more formatted program like this. And I think it's also just worth mentioning, though, is that confidence is going to build throughout the program. You're going to go through, it is accelerated. And so that will mean, going through highs, lows, sometimes within a day, within a week, within a course. It is intense. And there's something we call the emotional kind of cycle of change. It's something you all can research online, but you definitely will go through that as you're learning all these new skills. So just to share that, if you do end up taking this plunge and going for this program, don't be afraid of those days when you're all like, whoops, okay, I don't get it. It's all like totally going in my head. That is part of learning, for sure, right? It's learning isn't always easy. But having that kind of growth mindset and thinking about, it's not about I don't know this, it's about I don't know this yet. And I think having that kind of mindset as you go in will set you up in a great way.
And with that, Fee, I mean, it's the support that you're getting throughout is also, fantastic. So when you are having those moments, those challenging moments, you've got a success manager, you've got a coach, you've got your mentors in the group mentorship sessions. There's a wide range of individuals you can turn to at any point to keep helping yourself overcome any stucks that you're facing in your educational journey, which I think is quite a powerful differentiator to this program.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's actually a huge differentiator, actually, like that level of support, which is not only coming from your peers, right? Just having people go through the same experience that you're going through while you're trying to learn these new things is hugely valuable. But on top of that, your facilitator that you meet every week, or your mentors, your success manager, a career coach, you have, I believe, access to maybe like 6 sessions, or Josh will have much more detail on the specifics of that. But it's a lot more support, which of course is helpful on such an accelerated program, but it is a lot more support offered than a lot of the competitors out there, I believe.
Thanks, Claire. And Fee, yeah, a common conversation that I have is around how the program prepares you for the now and the current industry. And so there's a range of articles, data that indicates employers are hiring based on skills, not just qualifications. So yes, you still have the certification, the recognition of a top global university like LSE in this program, but very simplistically, how do you showcase the skills? How do you demonstrate that you can perform in a role? And in this program, the intent of that is the digital portfolio, and having that rather than say, a range of exams that are a little bit harder to showcase your skill set to employers. We've got a few more questions here. We've got 6 minutes according to my clock, so we'll do a bit of a speed round here. Some of these ones are kind of shorter answers as well. So how much of the course focuses on B2B compared to B2C?
I would say that we definitely do weave in some B2B examples and some B2B context, because, for example, there are some areas of the program that really only lend themselves to a B2B environment rather than a B2C. But I would say probably there is a slant a bit more towards B2C, and also as well keeping it agnostic between B2B and B2C. Hopefully that gives a bit more background there. But of course, don't forget that when you get to course 3, you could choose a B2B project, for example, if you were keen to make that your focus.
And we've certainly thus far enrolled digital marketers that are focusing on either. How does the program ensure a balance between technical skills and broader business acumen? We reference this towards the beginning of the conversation, but again, kind of in summary, how do we manage that balance?
I can jump in again here. So I would say that's kind of weaved in throughout. I'm trying to think of a better way to frame this. That they very much have kept that thought process in throughout. And I think it's also important to share that while the more data-driven skills that are covered in course 2 specifically, but also throughout the program are there, I think what this program very much focuses on is the broad principles and deeper learning underneath that essentially underpins whatever technological advancement you want to try out. Because, for example, I'm just thinking about, for example, like new tools, or as I say, like, Meta Ads Manager. If you want to go to training to like how to use that tool specifically, you would want to use those websites, because they will be the ones who will be updating the most up to date. You do this, do that, now click this, and this is how this will do this for your business. I think it's also worth mentioning that there are so many tools out there that do more, I want to say, that are competitors with each other. I'm just talking about, for example, there's SEMrush and Moz, all doing kind of, similar things. So this program is about not focusing just on that kind of one technical tool, like learn how to use this tool, because of course you may join an organization that uses a competitor. So this is about figuring out, okay, but why do you use that tool? What is that tool going to tell you? And so I hopefully that's a bit of a balance of this program is less about technical, do this, click that, with all the different plethora of tools that are out there, but more about what do the technical tools available tell you, how do you use them, how do you assess them, and then how do you make sure that you apply that to your strategy, to your leadership goals, etc. So hopefully that's a bit of an insight into like how we're balancing that. I don't know if Claire or Neil, you wanted to jump in, or Josh as well.
No, I think you nailed it, so I'm good.
I think go for it, Neil. I think one example, and Fee, you'll have to jump in here because I won't be as close to the final curriculum as you are. One example that comes to mind is you would have a plethora of channels that you might leverage in an inbound or an outbound strategy. So the program is not necessarily going to teach you the technical depth of each one of those channels in isolation. That's not the purpose. It's more to teach you how to combine those channels in a meaningful way to drive business value. And that's that strategic kind of lens to developing something like an inbound or an outbound strategy. And then even taking it one layer further to say, well, how does inbound and outbound strategy work together to drive a business strategy? And how do you cascade a marketing strategy down from a business strategy? So that's the space that this program is playing in versus giving you a technical, depth to a channel. That's at least, I know that's how we've approached the contributions.
Yeah, exactly that. So for example, it's about, okay, how do you choose which channels? And of course, so say it was like, okay, well, first, before you do that, you've got to figure out what segment you're targeting. So for example, if you figured out that all your customers are millennials or boomers, you're probably not going to use TikTok, for example. That's not where they're hanging out. I say that because I'm a millennial and I'm not hanging out on TikTok. So for example, and again, this is a very basic example, but that's the kind of strategic thing that that we need to make sure that learners really have mastered once they leave this program.
Thank you. Now we are at time. One more final quick question for the panelists before I let you go. The remaining questions I'll answer for the attendees that stay. But a good question to finish on. So what are some of the greatest joys you get from being a marketer? Sure, there's many.
So I'll go. I find a lot of joy out of seeing the impact that we have on actual business. So the real effectiveness piece that I spoke about right in the beginning, like when I can see we did this and we influenced that revenue number, then the CEO is happy or the CFO is happy, CMO, that gives me joy. The commercial side.
That's the most important side, isn't it, Neil? Isn't that what everyone wants from a marketer? I think mine, my favorite definition of marketing, and I can't remember who said it. It may have been like Seth Godin or one of them. He described marketing as the generous act of helping someone achieve their goal. And when I read that, I was like, wow, that just resonates with me on a values level. And that's what I love about marketing. It can be really meaningful in terms of helping someone make progress in their lives in a meaningful way, if it's done ethically and in the right sort of context. So that's what brings me joy, is seeing how I can help people make progress in their lives by selling them goods and services that they actually need and that will actually enhance their lives. That's what gives me joy.
Lovely. Great way to end. Claire, Neil, Fee, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated. There's no final words. You're welcome to jump off. I'll remain here to answer any further questions.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks so much for hanging around, team. I can see there's still a heap of participants here. I am aware that you've been in attendance for an hour, and there's so much that we can cover about the program specifically. If you do look in the chat, there is a link to book a time with your enrollment advisor. That'll either be myself or Shahana. Very much conversational, exploratory, answering any questions that you have, understanding your unique circumstances, and then seeing if the program aligns with it. So I highly encourage to book a time. Doesn't commit you to anything, but rather we can really see if this program can have a meaningful impact for what it is that you're looking to achieve next in your career. So please don't be afraid, click the link. Shahana and I would love to have a chat to you. I am going to just work from the top here in terms of the remaining questions and answer those. Firstly, what is the cost of the program? So the program fees are £6,300, and we have a range of flexible payment options. They firstly begin from an upfront payment, which would qualify you for a £475 fee reduction. And then we have interest and fee-free payment options, which include 6, 9, and for certain individuals, generally UK citizens or residents that are working. We also have a 24-month payment plan option as well. Again, we'd like to chat about your circumstances, what would work best for you. But we do have a range of options there that hopefully can make the program really accessible for you. We can provide all of that information via email too. Duration of the course, so it's 6 months. It's part-time. The majority of our students are working full-time or part-time. We do have a portion that aren't working at all, whether they're in between jobs or by choice to dedicate the time to this program. We do design it to fit in with a working professional. You know, you're often potentially juggling work, family, and study. So, yeah, designed to be as flexible as possible. Over the 6 months, we would recommend about 15 hours of study per week on average. When and how you do that will be up to you. The only time we require you be online is for your 2 live instructor-led sessions. So that's where you can get your academic support and engage with your peers. You can also do that at any time via our student community. So you can post questions there. You can book one-on-one sessions with your facilitator. But if you want live engagement, there are 2 hourly sessions per week, both of which are at a lunchtime. So at the moment, I think it's a Tuesday and a Thursday at lunchtime. All sessions are recorded as well. So for you, it's really, can I dedicate 15 hours of study per week with a range of flexibility over 6 months, a bit of short-term pain or sacrifices to see some really impactful return on investment for you after completing the program in terms of how career-focused and outcomes-focused we are with the program. Can I speak to someone that's completed the program? So this isn't something that we do as a standard because there's just such a high request for it. With our cohorts, one launching in January, early February, and May, our current students are still going through the program. So I would say it's probably unlikely at the moment because we tend to let candidates focus on the current learning experience. But in the coming months, we will have an opportunity to host a webinar like this with a current student, probably from our first cohort, who will have completed or very close to completing. And so I'd say that would be the first opportunity where you'll be able to speak to someone who has specifically completed the Digital Marketing Career Accelerator. Now, myself, Shahana, as enrollment advisors, we've enrolled all of the students in the program to date. I'm very well equipped with insight and stories regarding experiences. So again, book a time. We'll chat about what your questions are, and we will either answer them ourselves or try and get those responses for you as well. Are the programs neurodivergent friendly? Yes, but of course, we'd need to understand a little bit more about your circumstances and what you feel you would need to be able to perform effectively in the program. So we have had neurodivergent candidates study and complete our career accelerators. Again, would highly recommend booking a time, having a chat to us so we can really personalize the conversation and understand what it is that you need. But very much a possibility. Yeah. And if not, we'll certainly tell you. Are there any alumni networks or continued learning opportunities available after completing the program? Well, look, you're a part of the Career Accelerator alumni, which is part of the LSE. So at the moment, specifically, that's your peers that you'll have learned with and peers that have previously completed the Career Accelerator. So whilst it is fully online, there's a lot of engagement throughout your learning experience and your live sessions the student community and the employee project, you'll build a really strong bond with your peers. Further to that, we've spoken about the mentoring. So you're building networks there. Your career coaches, if you said, hey, I want more networking, I think that's a really great pathway for me to achieve my goal. They can support you in developing your networking skills further if you should require. With our data analytics career accelerator that's been running for a number of years now, 3 years, and we've had hundreds of career outcomes, I always speak about the importance of looking at your peers in your cohort and start networking with them as best as possible. We've seen candidates land employment in other career accelerators by networking with their peers, or even being exposed to employment opportunities with whoever they're working with. So always a really great, easy, free starting point is to network with your peers throughout the program. Finally, and please, any other questions, jump in now before we are soon to wrap up. But is this course useful whilst dealing with companies that have no strategy in line or very less data available? Well, yeah, because part of what you'll be learning is, when we speak about the technical side, is in the context of business strategy. So if a company doesn't have strategy, you'll have the know-how to look at what the company's currently doing, what their intended goals are, and actually implement the strategy yourself based on your knowledge and expertise. When we talk about less data available, well, again, that's looking at what data you have. If data is important, how do you safely increase that and then start to actually drive a data-driven culture within your current organization, if that is a goal. So, yeah, I think that's a great scenario where very quickly you're the expert, really, and you're going to be able to try and influence and drive the strategy, digital marketing strategy of an organization, or the uptake of data, as you highlighted. So yeah, it very much would be relevant for that situation. And that's it. We got through them all. Thank you so much for the engagement. Final few points regarding the program. So we have a program onboarding starting on the 29th of July, so next Monday. And we do have 3 weeks of onboarding, so we can accept late applications for another 2 to 3 weeks. And course 1 will be starting on, let me just get the exact date, on the 19th of August. So here, look, ideally, if you do have interest and you'd like to secure a placement, we're limiting the cohort sizes to 20 to 25 students, again, because of that hyper-personalized support. The sooner you engage with us and book a time would be the next step, or complete your application. You will need to chat with us, and we'll get the ball rolling pretty quickly. So the sooner, the better you do it, but we will leave applications open up until the 9th or 12th of August, depending if they're not already filled by then. Otherwise, we've got a cohort October 14th. So we have 4 presentations per year. So we've got our current July cohort and then October 14th as well. Yeah, would love to have a conversation with any of you that are interested in learning more. That's it for now. Appreciate your time. And yeah, hopefully I get to speak to you all one-on-one or see you at the next event. Bye for now.